Brookes Bench with your host, Brooke, aka Shigi, and my co-host, Brooke.
What's up, y'all?
And like we said last time, we brought back Megan.
I'm
I
back.
needed someone to compete with in our blind rankings later in the video. But today we're going to go over a preview of matchups, specifically May 19th to the 21st. It is a longer week for fantasy, so just be aware of that. Usually matchups go from only Monday to Sunday, but this week it'll be Friday until next Sunday. So just some key points that I want everyone to be aware of. You want players in your lineup every single day. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a full lineup playing that day. I know, Megan, you have a lot more experience playing fantasy basketball, so do you kind of want to touch on that actually?
Yeah, so basically you can update your roster for the entire week all in one day by flipping through the days and then plugging in the players you want. But you do want to check it day by day because after people play, they get injured. So you have to keep an eye on that daily to be able to swap people out. And then not every day will a player have a game. So that's when you're going to utilize your bench players to plug them in when they do have games. Or if it's someone that's not a starter that you want to hold on to for the entire duration of the fantasy, you want to potentially go to the waiver wire and pick up people that could benefit you for that day. So yeah, it's going to be kind of a day-to-day fantasy that you have to check consistently.
So
now I have a question for you guys because if you do your research on the WNBA, very hard, all right? Nothing pops up, stuff like that. So where can people like us who are doing fantasy team or even just want to pay attention to the WNBA, like where do we find that stuff?
At thebrooksbench.com. No, just like
Ooh, good plug.
No, honestly, it's super hard. I mean, just doing research to try and give you guys the best information we can is difficult. And then it being reliable, because everyone can say Twitter. I mean, a lot of updates are fast on Twitter, but it's not always factual. It's very much opinionated. I know ESPN tries to put out little articles on WNBA fantasy, but it's like once a week, and it's just the obvious players that you're gonna get information on that, I mean, we'll tell you about, but we're gonna go more in depth. I mean, we're gonna talk about people that are gonna be sleepers that may help you with, win your fantasy team. Fantasy league. So I mean, it's slim. So I would say WNBA.com. ESPN, I know, puts out some articles, and they're the one that runs WNBA or women's fantasy basketball. But honestly, we're gonna have the best info.
We are. And if you do pay attention to ESPN, pay attention to the dates because they'll plug in a lot of 2022. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that as well, because I've caught myself already in the last month, 2 months of researching and really diving deep, and it was all 2022. So yeah. Careful there.
I agree.
I'm hoping they update once the season starts. And I know the ESPN fantasy app for the NBA is good at updating and giving you notes if you click on the players on your team. If you click them, hopefully it has the up-to-date info like they do for NBA, but we'll see. It hasn't really kicked in during preseason, so I'm hoping they're maybe just waiting to the regular season.
Yeah, no coverage on that preseason whatsoever. So
very slim.
Changed.
Very slim. The only reason I knew about it was actually through Twitter. Like the independent writers that follow the teams. That's the only reason I knew about the preseason games, honestly. But okay, let's get into our first matchup on the 19th. So we got Connecticut Suns versus Indiana Fever. Obviously, your must-starts are going to be Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner, Brianna Jones, Tiffany Hayes for Connecticut. And then for Indiana, Nalissa Smith, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Victoria Vivians. So these people you probably drafted in the first couple of rounds. Now, people you probably drafted in the later rounds that you might want to consider plugging and playing. So these maybe you're going to plug in if you have no one playing on May 19th for some odd reason, but you have them on your bench. So for your plug and play, you're going to go with Heidman. She was an integral part of their team last year. And with Courtney Williams gone, she might have a bigger role. She averaged about 18.6 fantasy points per game, which is not bad if you need points for that day. And then also Dejanay Carrington, Love her. She's a hard worker. She might see an uptick because Courtney Williams left. She only averaged about 13.3 fantasy points per game. But like I said, with the movement, she might get more playing time, and she is a hard worker, so definitely look out for her. And then for Indiana, I like Queen Egbo last year. I think she gave good minutes off the bench. 18.8 fantasy points per game last year. And then obviously they got Maya Caldwell from the Dream. I mean, she was a good player for the Dream, averaged 19.6 fantasy points for them. And then lastly, Erica Wheeler, 18.5 fantasy points per game. So those three names I would plug and play if I had no one else to put in my lineup in the guard or utility spot. And then a couple watch and see candidates. So Tasha Harris obviously came from the wings. She didn't have a lot of minutes, 15.8 minutes, averaged about 10.2 fantasy points per game. But again, Connecticut is kind of struggling with their guards, so she might see an uptick in playing time. We don't know. So just watch out that first couple of games and see her involvement. And then a person I like from the Sparks, Olivia Nelson-Ododa. I really liked her. I know she didn't get a lot of playing time with LA, but I think she will with Connecticut. I think she's a good addition. And like I said, only 9.5 fantasy points per game. I know that's not a lot, but let's just see her impact with Connecticut. This is a totally different system. And I'm excited to see her play. And then lastly, Indiana. I'm curious about what Grace Berger is going to do. I think she might fit in well with this team. So she is another person to keep your eye out for this coming weekend to see if she does have an impact and they get her in the starting lineup, honestly.
Yeah, I think this matchup is going to be a really good beginning matchup because you're going to see a lot of subs in and out from both teams. You know, like Connecticut, they lost some key players, but they brought in people, and then you have Indiana, who's just super young. So I think they're still learning team chemistry on the court, and I think we're going to see a lot of subs in and out of this game.
I agree.
Yeah, I would keep an eye on Rebecca Allen for Connecticut. They got her from the Liberty, and she was a key player for them. She can shoot the three, so she stretches the floor out a little bit and opens up the paint for, Alyssa Thomas. I know Bonner kind of stays around the perimeter, but it'll open up the inside, and hopefully we see some, passing it in the paint and then kicking it out so she can hit the three. So I would probably put her in the plug and play.
The next matchup, we got New York Liberty versus Washington Mystics. Your must starts for New York Liberty, I mean, they're going to have a stellar starting. If they don't, it's because they're still trying to figure everybody out. But Sabrina Jonquil and Brianna Stewart, like, they're going to just run it. However, keep an eye on Jonquil. If you have her on your roster, probably not a bad idea to keep her on the bench if you don't do your research, just because she didn't finish a couple training sessions. I think it was a foot. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. One of her. So a little bit there. We don't know the extent to it. She might baby it a little bit here in the early season just to kind of make it the long haul. And then over on Washington Mystics sides, we got Ariel Atkins, Elena Deladon, who's coming out swinging this year. If you guys didn't check out social media, check it out. She's coming out swinging for sure. Natasha Cloud, Shakira Austin, Brittany Sykes. So is it actually going to be a fairly good matchup? I feel like you got like old school versus new school kind of going on right now. With New York having just like a stellar squad, and then Washington Mystics kind of being OG, the later we get into WNBA. But some key plug and play players. So for New York Liberty, you got Courtney Vandersloot, who, shocked everybody, might have been retiring to, hey, bam, I'm on New York now. You got Benijah Laney, who I think is going to come out pretty strong as well. I mean, she had averaging 19, almost 20 points per game last year. So keep an eye out on her. I feel like Courtney Vandersloot is a good pickup. However, with New York being so dominant, you might not see her, stats as of last year. She was averaging almost 27 points in fantasy league. So I could see a dip in that just because of how much depth New York has. And then over, Washington doesn't have too many plug and play, so that's kind of where it is a little bit tougher. If you want Washington Mystics on your fantasy team, you got to grab them quick. And then I think just the biggest person to watch on Washington Mystics is going to be Emily Ingsler. She might get some more minutes here now that the squad's getting a little bit older, but I mean, last year she only averaged about 16 points per game. So keep an eye out. She might be a good kind of bench rotation, especially if the later we get, more injuries kind of happen. I mean, God forbid, fingers crossed, but never know. And then honestly, New York's probably going to come out on top on this, but I feel like, it'll be a good test for Washington.
Yeah. No, I really like this matchup. I think this is going to be interesting. I don't know if you guys saw the preseason rankings. They had Washington pretty high, and Phoenix. They had Phoenix super high. I was kind of like, oh, that was interesting. But I'm curious to see New York play together, just because chemistry-wise, we don't know how they're going to click. So that is the most interesting part I'm like really looking forward to for this matchup for sure.
I think Washington has like a little slight edge just because, I mean, essentially their starting five is exactly the same. They're bringing back almost the same starting five from last year, except for Brittany Sykes, who's they're adding in, but she's an amazing guard. So I think it just added, you added a score to your starting five. So I think with them, though, it's going to be exciting to see who steps up from their bench, because their starting five is great, but who's coming off the bench when you guys have to rest to keep everything going. So Emily will be great. I think I'm glad they picked her up. I thought she was a great player. So I don't know why Indiana let her go, but they do have a lot of forwards on that team. But yeah. So I'm thinking that's why. So it was a great pickup for Washington, but they're going to need more than just her. And right now, like based off of last season, no one off the bench was really coming out and stepping up the way they needed them to. So hopefully that happens this year.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, moving on to Chicago Sky versus Minnesota Lynx. Obvious starters, you got Marina Mabry, Clea Copper, Courtney Williams. And then interestingly enough, Isabel Harrison, but like we said in the last video, Emma Meesman is not coming back to Chicago. She's going to stay overseas. So I'm excited to see how Isabel Harrison does, actually. And then for Minnesota, we got Ariel Powers and Nafisa Collier. It looks a little slim. I kind of wanted to put Diamond Miller here, I'm not going to lie to you, as a must start. But she will definitely be a plug and play. I really think she's going to impact this team tremendously. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw her preseason debut. I mean, she was already balling. So, so I'm excited. I think she'll move into our must start soon enough. But right now, she's probably on your bench. She was probably a late round pickup. But definitely put her in your starting lineups after that first game, honestly. And then also a good plug and play. If you just want some points, you got Kayla McBride. She actually averaged 21.8 fantasy points last year, so that's pretty solid. And then same with Jessica Shepard, averaging around the 20-point mark. So just keep an eye on those names if you have them on your bench, if you picked them up in late rounds. Those are definitely some solid points you're going to get from them. For Chicago, Rebecca Gardner, she averaged 17.3 fantasy points per game. So like we said, if you need someone to play, she's definitely going to be solid. She's definitely going to get you some points there. Some watch and sees for Chicago. Dana Evans, I think she's going to get some more playing time this year. I know Chicago's fan base really likes Dana Evans. She's going to be a sleeper. I think she's going to be like later in the season, you're going to pick her up and play her, honestly. That's kind of what I see her future for. And then for Minnesota, a watch and see player, I think Dorka Juhas could be an interesting player to see how she fits in with this team. For Minnesota, she might have some impact. I mean, Nafisa Collier is awesome, but she needs rest. I mean, so I think that later in the season, maybe a late pickup.
I would also look out for Tiffany Mitchell. We have her in the watch and see category right now, but she could potentially become a must start or a plug and play. It just kind of depends on how the Lynx utilize her. They traded for her and got her from Indiana. So it just depends on how they fit her in the rotation. Like Brooke mentioned, there's a lot of forwards already. Shepard, there's McBride, who's like kind of a guard forward. So it kind of just depends on how they fit her into the rotation to see if she becomes a must start or a plug and play.
Yeah, I would definitely say like Dorka might be a watch and see, but it might be like a longer watch and see. Yeah. I think she needs to toughen up a lot. I mean, she's going to get bounced around quite a lot. Diamond Miller, I'm sticking to it. So Diamond, you better come out soon, girl, because you've got a lot of faith in you. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good matchup too. I think Chicago is kind of working towards like a more rough around the edges type vibe this year. And Minnesota is definitely young, but they're strong and young. So that one will be fun. Next matchup we got is Phoenix versus LA. So must starts on Phoenix. You got Sophie Cunningham, Brittany Griner, if she's healthy. And I think this is probably the biggest if right now in WNBA is where she's at mentally and physically from what had happened to her. So if she is healthy, she's going to obviously be dominant. I mean, even in the 2023 mock draft, she was still projected to be like one of the top players, period, not even just forwards. So big there. And then Diana Taurasi for sure is going to be a must start. However, keep your eye on her because she is getting older. You know, it's more toll on your body, unfortunately. So I would probably keep her in a rotation if you have her in your starting. Definitely constantly every day check to see where she's at because there's going to be days where she might even rest. And then over at LA Sparks, I'm going to pronounce the name wrong for sure, but say it. What I'm not even going to try to say it.
Nneka Ogwumike.
Nneka, yeah, I was not gonna pronounce it like that. And then Azra Stevens. So 2 big forwards. I mean, LA, they've got a lot of people hurt or on maternity leave or bouncing around. So I think LA is gonna take a dip, but I'm telling you, 2024, LA Sparks is gonna be one to watch out for. Definitely some plug and plays. You know, with Phoenix, you got Brianna Turner averaging almost lower end of 19 points per game, and then averaging 33.4 minutes. Like that's a lot. So she might be the one that needs to kind of turn the notch a little bit this year and really dive deep into it. Over at LA and the Sparks, I like Hamby. I liked her at Vegas. I'm a little sad she's gone. I feel really bad. I really liked her. But she definitely was going to get overpowered on the Vegas team this year if she would have stayed. So I think Sparks is a good move for her. She's healthy and she's going to get a lot of playing time. However, she's a plug and play. I don't consider her a starter. She's definitely on the rotation squad. You got Lexi Brown. You got the other, sister going on over there forward. There's too many of them. I didn't know there was 3 of them until like more recently because they're just hitting buzzer beaters and dominating WNBA. I don't know. And then you got Jasmine Thomas for sure. However, your watch and see is going to be Mariah Jefferson and then Zaya Cook. Zaya Cook is going to be the rookie on the Sparks team. I think she's going to be the lower end of the rookies in general. However, keep that chip on your shoulder, grind it out. I think you're on a great team to learn a lot. But, I mean, overall, this is probably going to be an even matchup. I'm not sure. I couldn't guess who would be out on top. Maybe Phoenix if I had to pick somebody. But that's going to be a good matchup to kind of see where they might place themselves in the league.
Yeah. No, I agree because I was shocked Phoenix was ranked so high. I mean, obviously, Brittany Griner's a huge impact, but like we said, health, we don't know how much she's going to be playing. So that's why I agree Brianna Turner is someone that you should probably have in your lineup or, on your team just because we have to watch the situation with Brittany Griner. And she took over the role when she was gone. So I would definitely say she's a borderline must start if Brittany Griner doesn't play. How about that?
Keep an eye on the guards. Because it's going to be kind of wide open for all the guards on the team, honestly, to see who steps up. I mean, Jordan Canada, she's probably going to have the starting role, especially because, I mean, she has the most experience. I know last year she averaged about 20 fantasy points, but she's also kind of a passer first, minded, pass first minded, but it's wide open. That's why I said, we're going to have to watch and see. I think Cook could easily, as she gets stronger, as she learns how to transition to WNBA, she has a chance to get a lot of play time. I think it's wide open there.
Yeah. Okay, so May 20th, we're moving on to Atlanta Dream versus Dallas Wings. This is probably the game I'm looking forward to the most, honestly. This is going to be a really good game. So the must starts, obviously Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, Cheyenne Parker for Atlanta. For Dallas, it's Arike, Tiara McCowan, Natasha Howard, Diamond DeShields. I mean, those ones are pretty obvious. Then we get down to the plug and plays, and the ones I like, maybe I know Ari McDonald. I know Megan wants her to be a must start. I think she's still a plug and play. I don't know how Atlanta is going to navigate the situation with Alicia Gray now here. So I'm curious to see if that cuts into Ari McDonald's play time. I know she was great off the bench for them. So she's definitely in that consideration. And then AD Durr is coming off an injury. So again, we still don't know how that's going to affect Ari McDonald. So there's some competition with Atlanta. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. For Dallas, we have Satu Sabali, definitely a big that you want on your bench. Obviously, she's behind Tierra McCown and Natasha Howard, but Howard's a little older. She's gonna need those breaks. So I think Satu Sabali is gonna do good. And she averaged about 20 points, fantasy points last year. So I mean that's pretty solid. And then our watch and see list. Obviously, Haley Jones is on that list. She's a guard, and we don't know how she's going to be put in this lineup. I've heard good things that she's doing in preseason. But same with Ami here. She's been doing great too. But another guard. So I mean, I guess guard forward. I mean, she could play either. And then lastly for Atlanta, Naz Hillman. I know she was super good in college. I know Megan's a huge fan. Huh, yeah. Megan? Huge fan of Naz.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we'll see if she breaks this the starting lineup or even coming off the bench a little bit more. And then for Dallas, we have to watch and see Maddie Siegrist. I am super curious to see how they use her, honestly. Obviously she's a threat at all three levels. So I am curious to see how she works her way into this lineup. And then Crystal Dangerfield from the Liberty. She only averaged 12 fantasy points, but we'll see how, like I said, she works her way in the lineup. But I am very, very excited for this game. I can't wait to watch this one.
I would say keep an eye out for Nia Coffey. She's a forward for Atlanta Dream, and honestly, I think that if Atlanta Dream were to decide to do a bigger lineup, then she would be the one getting that starting position. So I'll be curious to see if they try to run more of a small ball game or if they plug her in. She's one of the bigger forwards on the team. Pretty solid too.
Matchup, we got your reigning champs, the Las Vegas Aces versus Seattle Storm. So if you remember back to last year, this was definitely a great matchup, fighting for, getting to the WNBA playoff or finals. And they were also fighting to the last regular season game. That was the game all three of us were at. We were hyped for it. Best game of the year because we were there. If you guys were at that game, we were the ones standing the whole time.
The entire time, not tired.
But I mean, just like New York, Las Vegas, you can go with any of them for your starters. Honestly, you could probably do just fine with the whole starting team. You got Kelsey, Asia, Chelsea, Jackie, and Candace. Let me tell you, that is a tongue twister. Say that 10 times fast. So you can't go wrong there. And then on Seattle Storm, they took a hit. They took a big hit. And honestly, Vegas is probably going to run away with this because of how big of a hit they took. But they do have Jewel Lloyd and Ezzy. I mean, I have Ezzy on my roster, so I definitely got to keep an eye out for this one. But plug and play, you got Williams with the Aces, so averaging 12, almost 13 points. Not going to be your starter for sure, especially on the squad. However, I would definitely plug and play her maybe when Vegas is playing Seattle or playing some of those lower level teams because they're probably going to rotate the starters out a lot more to give them that rest time. But Seattle Storm, you got Kia Nurse, who didn't play in 2022, so we'll see what happens this year. And then Sammy Whitcomb for sure, averaging almost 15 points from New York, coming over to Seattle. So we'll see how it all kind of lines in, but Seattle's definitely in a rebuild year. So this one's not going to be the matchup of the week, honestly, but it's going to be a good game and a good test, especially if you have anybody from Seattle or Vegas on your fantasy team.
All right. And then for the 21st, it's going to be the same teams that we talked about. So it's going to be Washington Mystics versus Connecticut Suns, Indiana Fever versus New York Liberty, and then Chicago Sky versus Phoenix Mercury. So like we said in the beginning, make sure to change your lineup every single day. Just make sure you have a player that is playing a game in your lineup. It resets every single day, and you're trying to accumulate the most amount of points within that week, okay? Good luck. Have fun. We can't wait for the WNBA season to start. I'm just excited. I'm excited for the season.
I'm pumped. Keep watching it. We gotta make it bigger. It's growing. It's getting there, but we got to keep going. We need more teams. We need more players.
Agreed.
Players are there. We need more fans to watch the game. We need more fans there. It's all about money, and we got to be the ones to do that.
Agree.
And I'm glad that they got those TV contracts. So every Friday you'll be able to catch a game on Ion Network, I think it's called. So it's like one of the first channels of your of your thing. So that's exciting to be able to watch every Friday. And then I know that they're still going to have their Prime games. I don't know if they're still doing the Twitter and Facebook games like they did. But I'm sure they'll still have that broadcasting, but I don't know if they're going to go to another site. And then you also have the pass, the WNBA pass. It's like, what, $25? It's not bad. I did hear that it blacks out some games, which kind of sucks, but you can catch, I think, majority of them, and it's not a bad price. So,
alrighty, to end off the video, we are gonna play our mini game. So last week, Brooke and Megan faced off to blind rank our WNBA guards, and today we're gonna do forwards. And Brooke has the list, so it's gonna be me versus Megan today.
Honestly, there might be a center in this. I don't have it fully in front of me.
This is bigs,
right?
Yeah, all bigs.
Also, I'm very excited about this. So for your first one, I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna go hard. We got Elena Deladon. 1 through 5.
I'm gonna go 3. I still believe
I'm gonna go 2.
Okay, 3 and 2. All right. Next one, we got DeWanna Bonner.
5. I'm gonna probably regret that, huh?
I'm gonna go 5 too.
This is fun for me. This is more exciting.
Isn't it fun?
Side.
Yeah, it's more fun. It is.
All right, coming in my third on my list, we got Aerial Powers.
Oh, why'd you do that, bro? You have to go first.
I'm gonna say 3.
Okay. I'm gonna go 4.
Ooh.
Listen, whatever you thought I was going to choose in this game, I hope that you know that I played devil's advocate and I chose the exact opposite. So for my fourth one, I got Brianna Turner.
2.
I got 4.
Glad.
And then we both have our one spot open, of course.
Well, it's gonna be horrible because
give us something good, Brooke. Come on.
It's not. I mean, I could, but that's not me, you know. So it's not like an awful pick, but I don't know if she'd be your first pick. We got Benijah Laney.
I guess she's our number 1 pick.
This was fun. I'm glad. I hope that I can.
That was horrible.
Games moving forward.
You know what? Give me Benijah Laney 1.
Give
me Benijah Laney 1.
The fact that I bet you guys thought I was going to say Asia or probably Candace Parker. Right?
I was waiting for like a star. Like I want a star.
But here's the thing. I knew you guys were waiting for one, so I knew if I threw out Elena Deladon first, it would throw you off, and then you would be expecting somebody bigger and better. Nah, that's not how I play games. Come on.
I almost put a Deladon at 2 too, and it probably would have worked out a little bit better for me.
You should have.
But I was like, man, she gets hurt so much.
Yeah,
she gets hurt too much.
Let the viewers know they just got exposed.
This year, she's gonna be healthy.
I know.
Megan covering her tracks.
Benijah, watch. Benijah's gonna be number 1 out of all these.
Dude,
people.
I'm telling you, watch out for her.
No.
I'm with her this year.
You're supposed to give facts on this show, please. She's not going to be better than Aerial Powers and Deladon.
Okay, but you have bias.
Hands down.
Okay.
No, hands down. Let's track the stat over the entire course of the year.
No, I don't want to do that bit.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Thanks for coming to our game that we totally failed. That was so embarrassing. But anyways, we appreciate all of you that watch our show. Like we always say, please like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. Tell your parents, tell your grandparents, tell your dog. I don't know, tell everyone. Back next week with more matchups. Have fun watching the games. Peace out.
Bye, y'all.